Live. Okay, we are live and yeah.
Yes, welcome to all the principals, heads of institutions, faculty, teachers, our resource persons present here today, and all the stakeholders that are connected with us and that the others who would be viewing this on different platforms once the session is over in an hour. So, as you all know by now, that we are in the third day of our series where we are talking about the introduction of the skill modules in the CBSE ecosystem. So we had an orientation on the first day where the chairperson, honorable chairperson was there, our director IT, our director skill education, and the others officials were part of the session. Yesterday, we had a wonderful session for an hour or so with the pottery skill manual team, and today we are here with the bakery team with us. So I think today is a day when we are all really feeling a little hungry also. At the topic when we look into a bakery module. So I would just introduce a little two line because it would be nice if somebody is joining us only today. These particular skill modules you would have seen has been there with a circular which was floated, and they talk about the introduction of these modules to 6 to 8 students. But again, in the last 2 3 days, we have discussed that this is open to the students of 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, whosoever wants to be a part of this skilling process. So this doesn't have very strict guidelines vis-a-vis assessments, or it's not really a board paper. So the schools are all there to offer the way they want to. Another important thing that has been discussed in the last 2 3 days vis-a-vis the skill modules is the different implementation guidelines. And I would request please go through our YouTube channel, the Skill Education YouTube channel of CBSE. You would get all the details there, which also includes the assessment patterns. The main idea about the entire thing is that it has to be something like a hobby, something that we are already doing as clubs, something as we are already doing as part of the CBSE system since ages. It's just that we are formalizing it in a way that okay, this is pottery, this is bakery, this is the other aspects, or an automotive or a satellite, something like that. We are trying to touch in. So just to put in as an intro, when we're talking about bakery, what I understand, although I'm not an expert, but being part of the CBSE system, and we do have subjects like food production, which talks a lot about the particular aspect of bakery also as part of the course curricula. One thing is very clear that it is a science and an arts and a maths and I think a feeling, everything put in together when we talk about bakery. Because science, we're talking about ingredients, we are talking about different aspects that go into making the different bakery items, so as to say. Then there has to be, a very simple thing like decision making. What you're making, how you're making, do you want to make a pastry, do you want to bake a cake, do you want to do it for a particular occasion? So there's a lot of decision making that is also there when we talk about this particular aspect of skill for the students at a younger level. Same applies to being creative. So they can be creative with whatever they are producing, and vis-a-vis the different shapes and the taste and the aroma and what you name it, and it's there. So I think this is a wonderful skill, and I would just leave the forum to our deputy, our joint secretary, Mr. IP Singh. He will take up from here, and then the session will progress as the day progressing for about an hour. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful session today. Thank you.
Thank you, Nitiji. A very warm good afternoon to everyone who has joined us, the principals, the teachers, stakeholders, and
Not audible, sir.
Is it audible now? Okay.
Yes,
Now? Okay. I'll come a little closer to the mic. Okay. I think it will be audible now. A very warm welcome to everyone who has joined us today for this program. This is the third program in the series of webinars. That we have for the skill modules. As you're aware, CBSE wide circular number 1 in the month of January had introduced the skill modules in the middle school in response to the recommendations of the National Education Policy 2020, para 16.5, which said that more than and approximately 50% of the population in the school has to be exposed to one or more skill during the middle ages. So keeping that in mind and keeping that aspect that the students of the middle school classes 6 to 8 already have a lot of subjects, it was envisioned that the skill modules will be kept very short in duration. With the credit framework coming in, it was decided to keep it at around 15 hours each. And these modules have to be not part of the regular studies, but part of the club activity or the hobby club that the school has. So maybe the school can open up skill clubs or the hobby clubs based upon the different aptitude and the interest of the children. When we were developing these modules and we were interacting with teachers, we had one module in particular that we showed to teachers and the students. When we showed the same module to students, they wanted more pictures, they wanted it to be more activity based. When we showed the same module to teachers, they said that this module does not have enough material to make a question paper. So when a teacher looks at a module, she thinks upon the assessment guidelines. When a child looks at the module, he or she thinks of the fun or the learning aspect or the activity aspect of it. So keeping all these things in mind, it was thought that why not have it in the form of graphic novel or comics. So Sandeep Sethi ji, our former education officers of CBSE and Director Education PDKF, and a dear friend of mine was very kind enough to help us in this initiative. He got together a team of teachers and principals who were equally enthusiastic on this initiative and prepared graphic novels or comics on these modules. So 3 comics or modules per topic were prepared. And now instead of doing it for class 6, 7, 8, again, based on the feedback, it was decided to be open to anybody from classes 6th onwards. But condition is that anybody who starts this module or the topic will always begin from module 1. So once you complete module 1, you go on to module 3. So currently, the website where we are registering this has a little issue. It's currently not taking that. Give us a day or so. It will also be reflecting what we are talking here. Then comes the very important part in the mind of the teacher is the assessment of this module. The modules are based or designed in a way that the child is able to develop an interest or gain some knowledge about that particular skill. Assessment is to be done by the school and not stressed upon. Initially, in module 1, the assessment is going to be basically about the child attending or completing the module, doing the classroom activities, doing the projects or the activities as envisaged in the manual or the module. So 30% of the time of the 15 hours for the module is to be given to the theory or the interaction by the teacher, whereas 70% of time the child has to do the activities on his or her own. Maybe make some projects, make some hand-on activities, do some group activities, present something. So you will have to go through the webinar, first webinar of this series, where we have given some suggestions of the activities that can be done. And at the same time, we have also we will also be releasing the document assessment of these modules once we are through with the feedback, which will be sharing at the end of every module from the participants and the first phase of this module webinar series. We will have more webinar series after the first phase, which was given to the schools, White Circular number 55. If you have not registered, kindly do that. If you have missed out on anything, they're all available on the YouTube channel. In case you have queries, there's a separate email ID, cbscskillmodules@gmail.com. It will be there in the chat box as well as the comment box on the YouTube channel. In case you have got some any query regarding skill modules, kindly send a mail there. Today, we have a team from Bluebell School, Gurgaon, who have helped us in creating the graphic novel and modules for this topic on bakery. I would not stand between you and the team because they have a very interesting presentation lined up for us. I'll hand over the stage to Sandeep Sethi ji for introducing the team and the module, and would be here only and interacting with you once toward at the end of the program and taking the question and answers if you have any. Thank you so much. Over to you, Sandeep ji.
Thank you, Niti ma'am. Thank you, RP Singh sir. Thank everyone for being here. Nice, very, very warm. The name bakery itself, you walk on the Delhi roads or go to a hill station where there's a baker's corner somewhere, and you get that aroma of the cakes being baked. That is really, really tempting for everyone. Now, we are going to get that aroma in the school itself on special days, maybe 12 days a year, wherein you start creating such material here and try to sell them during the time of the school fete and make them for so many events like the Teachers' Day, like the Parent Teachers Meet. Let the children and teachers have fun making them, learning how to make them, enjoying them, eating them, making an healthier issue out of them, and at the same time also find avenues of selling them to create a revenue. बिकॉज स्किल का मजा तो तब आएगा जब क्वालिटी इतनी अच्छी दो कि लोग उसको खरीदना चाहें और उनको कोई शिकायत ना हो. This is a very big challenge going to come to schools, but I'm sure a lot of you all have done this earlier, and it's just that you're going to add a few more things. In all the processes of the manuals that are being made, the focus is here how to use the manual in schools. क्या इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर चाहिए, कितनी प्रॉब्लम हो सकती है. तो ये प्लेटफॉर्म इसलिए बना है कि टीचर्स पूछ पाए कि ये एक प्रॉब्लम अगर होगी तो क्या होगा, इसका पॉसिबल सोल्यूशन क्या होगा. क्योंकि जो स्कूल ने नॉवल ये बनाया है मैनुअल, उसने उसका एज अ पायलट प्रोजेक्ट चलाया हुआ है, सो दे नो ऑल द नीटी ग्रिटीज इन डूइंग इट. So they should be the best people for us to be told कि ये मत करना, इसमें प्रॉब्लम होगा, इसमें नुकसान हो जाएगा, इसमें टाइम वेस्ट होगा. These are the things that we expect the schools to share with us, and any concern that the teachers want, they should be attended to. Another aspect that is happening here is thanks to CBSE and the NEP, the policy that we have around 33 subject manuals ready. But that's not the end. We have got scope for more. So we are already going to have some sessions for preparing new manuals, 25 more coming up in the coming 6 months. So schools who want to join in, do send in inquiries whether you want to take part in preparing a manual. Let's be part of creating a history also that way. Without taking much of your time, I would definitely want to welcome Soma ma'am and her team. And thank you, ma'am, for all the efforts that you've taken in the past 6 to 8 months to prepare this particular manual. And all the best to you. So here's to Somi ma'am from Bluebells, Gurgaon. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Dignitaries from Central Board of Secondary Education, directors and principals across India, and education fraternity of the entire nation, a very warm evening to all present. First and foremost, I would like to thank Honorable CBSE Chairperson, Ms. Nidhi Chabbar, Director Skill, Dr. Saha, Director IT, Dr. Johari, the Skill Education Department of CBSE, and Sandeep Sethi, sir, for creating such an excellent platform of collaboration and team learning across nation and beyond. It is a great honor and opportunity for us to be having this exchange of ideas with the education fraternity across India. Developing manuals on skills was a brilliant opportunity for us at school. Well, what drew us to this task was that fact that by inculcating skills in people, we open a plethora of opportunities in employability and earnings, the results of which can be seen in markets across. While visiting malls, stalls, and kiosks, one is always drawn to colorful bakery items. These always become crowd pullers. With a sparkle in our eyes and salivating mouth, we can't stop our feet from moving towards these delicacies. A passion for some, a career for others, but a source of joy for all are the baked items sold at all stores, malls, and kiosks. Employability, leading to young entrepreneurs in the making, and the suitability of our school infrastructure prompted us to choose the skill of baking to develop the manual. We have a well-developed and well-used home science lab where our students have been carving recipes out of varied ingredients and churning out delicious, nutritious products. This hands-on practical learning has also generated a lot of curiosity amongst our students. And yes, I want to mention that this is not just theoretical for us. It is a tried and tested experiment as our students have been baking cupcakes, muffins, cakes, and so much more, and organizing sales of the same at varied school events such as PTMs, Christmas Carnival, and the school annual function. The proceeds from this are then sent to NGOs. This has also helped us in contributing towards the betterment of society. So, students, while learning the simple skill of baking, have also imbibed the entrepreneurship skills of planning and strategizing, developed a work ethic culture, and also inculcated the value of empathy by contributing to the nation at large. This effort of ours is in sync with SDG 4.4, increase the number of people with relevant skills for financial success. However, that is not to say that one can only do this if the school has a home science lab. The basic requirement is of a well ventilated room with adequate supply of water and electricity. And along with this, what is needed is a microwave oven or an OTG, some baking molds, a hand beater, and a spatula, and obviously the necessary ingredients. And even if one doesn't have an oven, in the absence of an oven, a pressure cooker turns out to be a very good substitute. The only care while using the pressure cooker which needs to be taken is that the cooker should be without the gasket and the whistle. And in fact, the same can then easily be carried on in any office pantry. Normally, schools, we all have office pantries. So, an office pantry with a gas connection also would work very well for carrying out this skill. Now, coming to the manuals. Well, the manuals have been designed keeping in mind learning progression across classes 6 to 8 with a deliberate attempt at transdisciplinary approach. The language used is simple and student friendly, comprising of a lot of fun activities which are based on different levels of the Bloom's taxonomy. Care has also been taken to ensure that the activities are age appropriately engaging, learner centered, they cater to the subject specific skills. This is keeping the transdisciplinary approach in mind, and yet at the same time also enhancing the 21st century skills of communication, collaboration, and creativity. Now, a question which can pop up into all our minds is, well, who can facilitate the skill of baking? And do we have to bother the HR with another trainer being hired now? Well, not really. Any facilitator with basic knowledge and interest in cooking or baking can carry this out in the school. And it will really not be a surprise if any senior school student volunteers to become a facilitator for carrying forward this skill. That's how simple the language and all details have been taken care of in the manual. And then this can easily be carried out in the club period. In fact, I would like to share over here that since, as I mentioned, it's a tried and tested experiment for us, and we have been doing it for quite some time, some of our alumni got so drawn to this activity that now they have been coming to us as visiting faculty for the same. And yes, I must also mention that the unprecedented pandemic times really proved to be an opportunity for our budding bakers. And now, without taking much time, I hand it over to my colleague, Ms. Bona Sharma, to take you forward through the manual. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I will now apprise you with the content of Class 6th manual. So the manual is divided into 4 chapters, where chapter number 1 talks about baking, its evolution and history. Chapter number 2 talks about basic ingredients needed for baking muffins and cakes. Chapter number 3 talks about basic tools and equipments that are needed in baking. And chapter 4 talks about baking and selling muffins, followed by a project in the end. So in the chapter number 1 of the manual, the facilitator will be able to introduce the term baking, its evolution and history of baking through a small activity using a handout as given on page number 8 of the manual. These are short duration activities and very engaging, where the skill of baking will be gradually inculcated in the students. At the end of class 6th, students who have acquired the skill of baking muffins and cupcakes and equipped to use different flavors to bake their muffins and cakes. After the completion of this activity, the facilitator introduces the term baking. The facilitator then talks about history of baking, where the students will learn and understand that baking in ancient Greece led to an invention of an enclosed oven. Students will take their learning forward by doing a small research on history of baking and will share their learnings with their peers in the classroom. Now let's go to chapter number 2 of the manual, which talks about the basic ingredients needed for baking muffins and cake. As we see, the basic ingredients needed are refined flour, eggs, optional. We have different flavors available, ranging from vanilla essence to raspberry to saffron, red velvet, castor sugar, butter or oil, and any self-raising agent ranging from baking soda, baking powder to yeast. Now, coming down to the healthier options available, so one can also switch over to healthier options now available. Instead of refined flour, one can use buckwheat flour, which is commonly called as kutu ka atta in India, almond flour, millets, bajra, and jowar to have a substitute to refined flour for a healthier option. Now, if one is not an vegetarian, this question pops in the mind, I would never be able to bake a cake. No, the journey doesn't stop here. You can definitely bake your own cake by using milk and oil or butter or vinegar instead of egg and literally enjoy it too. And we make sure that the green and the red dots indicating the vegetarian and the non-vegetarian items should be marked on the muffins and the cakes. All the ingredients needed in the baking process should be fresh. The flour that is left unused for many months will become dry and eventually will affect the final baked item. Each ingredient plays a very, very important role in the entire baking process, the details of which have been incorporated in the manual again. Now, coming down to chapter number 3 of the manual, which talks about basic equipments needed in baking. Here, the students will be able to identify the appropriate tools and equipments required in the process of baking. So to start with, we need either a microwave oven or a pressure cooker or an OTG, some measuring cups and spoons, spatula, which can be a wooden spatula or a silicone-based spatula, a hand beater or an electric beater to start with. Keeping hygiene in mind, students should always be asked to wear apron, headgear, and gloves while working in the lab or room. Safety of the student is very important, and initial hand holding will help them develop the confidence and right approach towards the skill. The facilitator must ensure that wearing of gloves is important while putting and taking out of the muffin from the oven. Cooling of the muffin is another very important step to achieve the right kind of texture and color of the baked products. Now, coming down to chapter number 4 of the manual, here the learners will be enabled to acquire the skill of baking and selling muffins. Recipes of different types of muffins is shared in the manual, which will help the students enhance their creative, critical, and entrepreneurship skills. At the end of the session, the facilitator helps the students to plan a design layout to sell different types of baked items, paving their path towards being an entrepreneur. With this start, the journey of baking in class 6th, where the students have already learned how to bake muffins and cupcakes using different flavors. This learning will be taken to another level in class 7th, where the students will be learning how to make sponge cakes and chocolate cakes, and also will be introduced to the basic tools and equipments of icing. The learning in class 8 will be taken to next level, where the students will be learning to decorate their own baked cake. I will now request my colleague to take over for class 7. Thank you.
Taking the baking manual yet a level up, we move to class 7. The manual is divided into 4 chapters with the project in the end. The learning of students is taken a step forward where the students will now be able to bake cakes. So it starts with the understanding of the term baker and the importance of baking. In chapter 1, the facilitator introduces the term baker to the students, as a baker is a person who bakes cakes, muffins, breads, and pastries. So the students will be able to understand the term baker and the importance of baking. Moving ahead, we come to the importance of baking. The important aspects of baking are number one being nutrition. The nutritious value of baked products, along with good taste, are a healthy and attractive option for students, especially for tiffin and snacks. What pleasure a child holds in the sparkling eyes when they peep through the oven glass and see the muffins rise. Baking products and taking them to school for a friend gives another level of fulfillment. Even a self baked cake for a friend's birthday is a precious gift. Then there is creativity. An individual's imagination is stimulated to become creative by thinking differently and enhancing the quality and taste of the baked product in different ways. Another aspect of baking is happiness. What else do we need? Self created baked products make people happy. Stimulating the senses is another important aspect of baking. As the aroma of baked products reaches our senses, the feel good factor is created with the hormone endorphin. We enjoy the process and the result of baking. Then there is nourishment. When it is about nourishing ourselves, we must ensure to incorporate healthier options like buckwheat flour, almond flour instead of refined flour. Moving to chapter 2. In this chapter, the students will be able to understand different methods of baking a cake. The manual talks about different methods used in baking a cake like whisking, creaming, melting, blending, rubbing, and the all-in-one method. There are different methods of preparing the batter and baking a cake. Each method turns out cakes with a different texture and taste. Different flavors or an essence can be used to make products to have different tastes. The chapter also brings to us the various stages in the baking process, like expansion of the dough, rising of the cake, and watching it through a child's perspective of accomplishment is a dream coming true. It's like a farmer standing by the side of his fields and smiling at the hard work and gratitude. We can also teach them about the poke needle test and check on the readiness of the cake. Then the other factor is drying of the cake and browning of the cake or the baked item. With chapter 3, the students will be able to learn about the nutritive value of a healthy cake versus a cake made from refined flour. The manual takes us through the nutrition and nutritious value of the cake and how bringing in alternate ingredients can bring about healthier them understand marketing skills and become entrepreneurs in times to come. The manual has been designed to empower the students with baking capabilities. Baking is a lucrative career, and students with proper guidance and direction in this field can carve their own niche when they become young entrepreneurs. Field visits to a bakery can be arranged, and hands on learning can be enhanced. The project to be taken up at the end of Class 7 manual is a research work culminating in the sale of assorted cakes. Thank you so much. Now I request my colleague to take up the presentation for Class 8.
Thank you, ma'am. So the process of baking scales another level in Class 8, where the important skills required by a baker are taken up. Having the right skill set for any profession is pertinent to understand the importance of the profession. Now, this manual, Class 8, is divided into 5 chapters, where chapter number 1 talks about important skills for a baker. Chapter number 2 talks about types of cakes and baked goods. Chapter number 3 talks about roasting and difference between roasting and baking, and some facts about baking. Chapter number 4 talks about career as a baker, and chapter number 5 has different recipes to make different types of cakes, followed by a small project in the end of the manual. Chapter number 1 of the manual talks about the important skills required by a baker. So these skills are creativity, ability to follow recipes, ability to meet timelines, organizational skills, and keen eye to every detail. These skills will be nurtured and enhanced throughout from classes 6 to 8. Having a roadmap clearly drawn helps a baking enthusiast to identify and hone the required skills. These are the basic skills of a baker which help them to become a successful baker. Now, coming down to chapter number 2 of the manual, this talks about different types of cakes ranging from yellow butter cake, pound cake to red velvet, carrot opera cake, and a dry fruit cake. Through this chapter, students will be able to understand that the final product can be altered by using different ingredients and different methods of baking a cake. Chapter number 3 talks about different facts of baking and also the differences between roasting and baking. Now let's touch the chapter number 4, which is very important because this chapter touches the career option as a baker. The diverse role of a baker will be discussed here along with the job opportunities available with the skill set of baking. Students here will be able to explore the various opportunities in the field. They can be head bakers, kitchen managers, chef, bread bakers, and many, many more. Basically, this entire chapter talks about how can one become a baker qualifying all the required eligibility criteria. This chapter also gives a broad framework of the courses available like Bachelor's of Hotel Management and Catering Technology, BSc in Culinary, Bachelor's of Catering Technology and Culinary Arts. Employment opportunities are also shared in this chapter of the manual. This will keep the students gain insight into the eligibility criteria, job opportunities, and different roles that one can play in the industry. Now, coming down to the last chapter of the manual, this will help the learners to enhance their skill of baking by trying different ingredients to achieve different cakes like pound cake, chocolate cake, opera cake. By the end of this chapter, the students will be able to understand the recipes to make different baked items like flavors of different cakes. Excitement of baking will open paths to innovate and plan a sale of the baked products. By the end of class 8, students will be able to create their own baked products using different flavors and organize sales of baked products at different events at the school. The learning does not stop here with the presentation of class 8 manual. I request my colleague to please take it forward. Thank you.
The journey does not end here. It's just the beginning. It is the beginning of taking the skill forward when students of classes 9 and 10 are also baking cookies and breads and going beyond. The purpose of baking is just not limited to introducing one skill subject, but stimulating synergies and integrating knowledge. The experiential learning during baking sessions will help students to practice some basic mathematics skills in a real world situation. There is a lot of counting, measuring, and fractions involved in baking, which allows children to practice and improve their mathematical skills. As you see while baking a muffin, we also learn concepts of circumference, diameter, and radius. Thus, baking allows deep learning in children. While following recipes and baking steps, it would help build students' language skills and reinforce our current writing patterns. The manual provides the students with task sheets, which would help them learn the transformation of sentences from active to passive. As you see the creative writing, if I were a cupcake waiting for my strawberry icing, this is just one example. There can be n number of examples, and that is how we basically relate the language skills to the baking. Science in baking is incorporated as students connect to science as we mix different edible chemicals such as baking soda to create dough or batter with tiny air bubbles trapped inside. They also connect to science, basically biology, as the culture of yeast provides carbon dioxide to make the bread rise. We teach the chapter microorganism in grade 8, where yeast as unicellular organism is used with reference to bakery. They also learn trapped gases expand and give rise to the bakes. The concept that gases expand on heating is also understood. As the temperature rises, the gas molecules vibrate faster, leading to rising of the cake batter and giving us a very fluffy cake. So it is physics now with baking. As a way to consolidate the experiences and learning from our baking sessions at school, our learners reflected and shared some of their thoughts and ideas. It is important to measure the things before we mix. This is what Sia said. Now, when we're talking about measures, automatically she's relating to mathematics. Yatharth of class 7, he said that if we add milk to the cake batter, it becomes flowing consistency. Again, science out here. Saksham from class 8, he says the cupcake rises and becomes fluffy because we added baking powder. So here the chemistry comes in. Ishita of class 7, she says, I learned the process of baking cupcakes and enjoyed decorating it using icing and sprinkles. So this is where the art comes in. As you all can make out from these vivid and vibrant conversations and feedbacks, we were engaged in a truly transdisciplinary learning experience that shows how the real world is not broken into subject areas, where there was maths, science, language, art, life skills, everything rolled in one. Do notice, discipline boundaries were transcended in baking. Besides the academic subjects, baking teaches us the mother of all skills, that is, life skills, which trains young minds to read and follow instructions, develop decision making abilities, and definitely brightens creativity. 2023 being a millet year, we were way ahead of times by making students practice recipes with millets such as bajra jowar, which have high nutrition value. Baking also trains students towards financial literacy by calculating the cost of ingredients, profit, and concept of saving, which we study in class 6 manual in making of young entrepreneurs. To conclude, we would say do not take the manual as just a skill manual, but a way to connect with academic subjects, life skills, financial literacy, entrepreneurship, and giving the real life experiences to our students. So I would say happy skilling, happy baking. Thank you so much. So here you see the students in action.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, team of Bluebells, for this exciting and very interesting presentation that you have given to us about the manuals, Module 1, Module 2, and Module 3. What was very interesting in the presentation was how you have interlinked it with all the subjects and how the children have been smiling while they were doing the activities, how much interest they were showing when they were doing the activities.
Can we have the session open for some questions now?
Yes, sir, definitely. Among the participants who have joined us on WebEx, would anybody?
So, Niti ma'am, can I ask some questions if we can collect them?
We can one initially.
Soumya ma'am, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, sir. Can you hear us?
Okay, fine.
Can you hear us, sir?
So Niti ma'am, you're asking the questions?
Can you hear us?
Yes,
I
yes,
can
we
hear
can.
you very
No,
softly,
no,
but
I'm
I can
talking
hear
to
you.
Sandeep Sethi, sir. I think he has, he's not getting the right. Can you hear me, Sandeep, sir?
I can hear you.
Okay, fine, perfectly. So how we'll go about is, initially we'll see if any of the participants who have joined us live would come and raise a question. After that, we have collected some queries from different platforms like YouTube and email and others. So we'll try to ask a few questions from the platforms that we have received. So in the beginning, please raise your hand or please come in and open your video if somebody has any query to the team of the skill module. So we'll
Great.
take up the queries related to the module of bakery so that
Sure.
the experts in the team can answer it.
Yes.
Okay. Please, anybody?
Charu, ma'am, please go ahead and ask a question.
Yeah, actually, I don't have a question right now, but I really wish to stand here as a testimony to the baked cakes from Bluebells Model School, because being in the same vicinity, Gurgaon, and every Diwali we get a plate full of cupcakes baked at, in-house from them. So thank you so much, teams Bluebells. So I just wanted to say, yes, they are working and wonderfully well.
Thank you,
Yes.
Charu ma'am. Thank you
Yes.
so much.
And yes, taking a lead from them, I have started the similar thing at my school. And thank you so much for inspiring, I would say. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
We look forward to stories from your school also.
Thank you. Sure.
One question that we are getting again and again is that we need to clearly specify about the lab and the equipments required. So maybe if you can just briefly tell us again, for the benefit of the schools who missed out, what are the equipments and any lab required for the purpose?
Well, sir, not really. As I mentioned, you don't really need a lab as long as the school has a room with adequate supply of water and electricity. And what you need to install is either a microwave or an OTG. And even if a microwave or an OTG is not there, a pressure cooker would work with a gas connection, of course. And the basic baking module, the basic molds and your hand beater and a spatula. So one really doesn't need a home science lab to carry out this skill. I hope any further details or.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the clarification.
Thank you. Thank you.
And for the benefit of everybody, it would be appreciated if you could add up the list of equipment and the ingredient mentioned in a particular module towards the end of the module. So maybe we can say that for doing this module, you will need these things. For the complete module, we can add a sheet or an annexure to that module.
Yeah, a list of resources we'll attach to that.
Required for that particular module.
Right.
Not for the entire topic. Maybe module 1 has these many activities. So you will need these things required for that particular module.
Sure. Right.
Some questions?
We have another question that has come up, and somebody is asking, one of the principals, do we need a special instructor to execute the contents of the manual? It's a very, very general question, and I think it will be asked for each manual, I'm sure.
Well, again, not really, Neeti ma'am. Even a simple, any facilitator, any teacher in the school, in fact, even support staff we've seen emerging out, like our people who are support staff who've been deputed at the home science lab, especially, even otherwise, those who have a good knowledge, basic knowledge of cooking and interest in cooking and baking, because the manual is very simply detailed, can be the facilitators for it. And in fact, like in our club periods, what we have is like it's like a vertical integration in the club period, which we follow in the schools. So we've also noticed that a grade 8 child taking forward a session for basic, creating the basic muffin for the grade 6. So even senior kids turn out to be as facilitators and are alumni. And in fact, many times we have parent volunteers coming. In fact, I would like to share over here that we have also hosted baking workshops for our parents, those who've been interested. So that's how, the chain has multiplied and we've created facilitators amongst our community. Thank you.
So how long have you been practicing this in your school?
Sir, I think this has been, Mona, for how long? I think 6-7 years or more than that.
Yes, ma'am. Since last 6-7 years we've been doing.
So maybe if required, your teachers can be leaders in training schools in the vicinity. They can help their teachers to understand and can mentor them to introduce this in their schools.
Sure, sir.
Thank you.
I think next Hubs of Learning activity, we'll do this with the schools under us in the Hubs of Learning.
That would be great.
We have another question that has come in. It is from N. Soju. as the baking process takes more than an hour, is it possible to finish in a 40-minute period, or we have to make it in a club period of 2-3 periods? They want to ask from the school who has already been there and done it, so they just want to get some idea regarding this.
Mona, why don't you share how you've managed in 40-45 minutes also?
I'll answer this question, ma'am. So initially, the entire baking process takes you 40 to 45 minutes, which I think is the duration of a class. The only hitch will come when the school is using a pressure cooker. So, in that case, the time limit goes up to an hour or so. Well, if a school has 2 club periods together, manageable. If the school does not permit 2 club periods, in that case, so what we've been doing is, ma'am, children have been baking, the cake is ready, and the children come either during the recess time to see what has popped out or before they leave for home, so that, they also carry that baked product for their parents.
And I think to that, I can add that we have also, as per NEP 2020, that we should have a bagless days. So I think a school can look into that aspect also, and that bagless days can be worked out to have these sort of practicals, and the academic part can be taken up in a normal school days when the session is going on.
Right,
So,
ma'am.
right.
In fact, over here, sorry to interrupt, ma'am. I would like to add that to cut down the process short, one can always keep the ingredients ready. In fact, what our plan for the coming session is also that once, it's like class 6 is already in 7, so they are acquainted with it, of preparing the DIY kits, like, the do-it-yourself kits, where we keep the ingredients measured and everything. Children prepare it one day, and then the next follow-up day or the next period they come, like whenever is their next class, so they can come in and, start the baking process. So that also would cut down the time period if you are like the pre-preparation is already done.
Okay. Now since we've opened it up to all the classes, and let's say module 1 has a heterogeneous group of students in different classes, and you generally do these activities in groups. It's not an individual activity, it's a group activity. So maybe you can look at the possibility of one group coming in a period and doing one part of the activity, and then another group coming in the period doing another part of the activity. So that can also be looked at, provided you have got the club activity designed in that particular manner. So it's all permutation combination by the school. We are not going to get into those nitty-gritties. We're even opening it up for an online courses also later on, that a child can interact on the theory, and maybe it's anytime, anywhere, not necessarily in the school also, but under the supervision of a facilitator or a teacher. So the system allows a lot of combinations and permutations. It's the only limiting factor is the imagination of the teacher and the principal and the group that is involved in implementing the process. If the group is convinced, you will find ways and means. If the group is not convinced, you will find roadblocks everywhere. And the idea is skilling, not teaching. It's basically no matter how hard you teach what the cake needs, if the cake doesn't come out nice, the whole thing is falters. So if the project is baking a cake, then the cake should be right. Okay. Any other questions?
Just there are a lot of questions coming in, so we'll just try to take one or two before we have that 1 hour session call. We have another question with Mang Singh San. He says, I would also like one query that needs to be answered. How many classes would be sufficient to establish and inculcate the points presented in the modules?
Alka ma'am, you're on mute.
It's basically, when we're talking about it, we have talked about 12 hours. So that is like the whole manual can be covered up in those 12 hours. That is technically, if you're taking up 45 minutes, then automatically you can calculate the time accordingly. So that is the time frame to complete one manual. And it is not just completing it. If you look at it, in the end, as Mona ma'am and Summer ma'am and Pal ma'am, they were talking about the projects, what they're going to take up. So that can keep extending, but majorly covered up in 12 hours. Thank you.
Okay, and another small thing, I think it's a very general question, but since somebody has asked, so I think I will just put in. They say, as mentioned in the manuals of 6th, 7th, and 8th, what I get to understand is only cakes and muffins are mentioned. This is one Sonia Topo who has asked this. Can we also progress to breads, cookies, etc.? So, a very, very normal question, but still, I think the experts will be able to answer it better.
Well, ma'am, our grade 9 and 10 students, like that's how we've done the progression. That grade 9, like, and 10, like these kids are getting into the baking of cookies and breads, as Alkama mentioned in her presentation.
So
So
just
that's how we progress. But then again, it's all very flexible. It depends how many hours the school has. If they can keep some special Saturday assigned for an activity, children are willing to come. So it's like just as we have put our school ATL lab, we have put it to use on Saturdays, even to outsiders and otherwise. So it all depends upon how the school wants to take it forward, the kind of time available with the school.
just a small suggestion. Currently, we are referring to modules with respect to a class. So let us look at a scenario wherein we have modules with respect to the recipe or the dish. Maybe one module for cupcake, one module for muffins, one module for bakery, cookies, one for breads. So maybe we can have different modules, which will be increasing in the difficulty. So as a person moves from one module to another, the difficulty and the time taken for baking also increases.
Sure, sir. We'll work on that now.
Okay, I think as of now, we'll just take the last question now, and it's a very relevant question. So I would request our Joint Secretary, Mr. Happy Singh sir, to answer that. There are a lot of queries on a single question where they are asking, can we take up the module 6th, 7th, and 8th simultaneously or together? So I think this is a very important question, and sir, if you can answer that.
So if the school is taking this module for the first time, then everybody begins from module 1. Once you've done module 1, then the people who have done module 1 go to module 3 and a fresh slot comes for module 1. So the school can simultaneously, in that scenario, have two modules being taught together in the school. And then after 15 hours, the second module, people go to module 3 and a fresh group comes at 2 and a fresh group comes at 1. So the school in that scenario might have a group, 3 modules being taught together. But no matter which class, you will always begin from 1. So once you do 1, then you go to 2, and then you go to 3, and so on and so forth. So as the modules are being developed, the number will keep on increasing. With the respect to, let's say, now that we have discussed it, with respect to the dishes, maybe baking cookies, breads, pastries, and all those things. I hope that answers the questions.
Answers everything. Thank you. I think I hope there are.
Sandeep ji, you question? No,
Sandeep Sethi sir, do you have any question?
RP Singh sir, am I
Because
audible?
you are unaudible.
Niti ma'am, am I
I
audible?
can hear you.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just adding, I'm adding to what, yeah, about to what different levels of breads, etc., can be done. So that depends a lot upon the exposure of the school children themselves, the exposure of the teachers, because a lot will think of simple breads. And if there's a very, very well exposed school or children or parents,
Okay.
or the teacher बन जाएगा, दलिया bread बन जाएगा, corn bread बन जाएगा, के experiences पे होगा. That's that. कि क्या I want to add. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir, Sandeep sir, and thank you the team for this wonderful session today. And you have set the tone right. The first step was conceptualizing this manual. The second step was really putting it together and trying to work through so that it is for the kids of 6th, 7th, and 8th. And the third part where you had pitched in is presenting this excellent 1 hour session. And I'm sure everybody has got a fair idea of how they'll go about it. And thank you, team, and thank you, obviously, everybody who is part of this session, including the team, which is very important, and that's the IT team that we have. So a special thanks to our IT team who will be doing it every day at this time and setting up the tone for us so that it goes out well. Thank you, Joint Secretary RP Singh sir, for being here and taking out the time, and of course our Director Skill Education, Dr. Saha, and the person who is behind everything, and our honorable chairperson, whose vision we are trying to accomplish in some way or the other as per the NEP 2020, and now we also have a draft and we'll look into 2023 NEP also. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day, and hope you keep on repeating and going through the manuals. Open the session, open the study material that is available. I'll just add the last thing. This study material is available on the CBSE academic website. You go there, you have a section called skill education, and under that, under books, you would have these manuals available. In addition, the circular that has been floated also has a link of the study manual. So all the best and keep baking. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, CBSE.
So much. All the best.
Thank you.